Well, hi everyone, and a warm welcome back. Today we've got a couple of messages to start off with, but first of all, a quick reminder that I am not a professional mechanic. If there's anything we're doing today that you're not sure about, you should always seek professional advice. Now, on the thank you list, of course, as always, the really big thank you goes out to the patrons of the channel. I really do appreciate your contribution each month. That helps to pay towards a little bit of what it costs to run this channel. And also I'd like to say a big thank you because today we've hit the total of 3,000 subscribers. Now, on internet terms, 3,000 may not seem a lot, but given how rare these cars are now and the fact that I'm not a professional and these are pretty much DIY videos, you know, I consider 3,000 to be quite a lot. I'm well beyond what I ever expected. So thanks to all of you who have subscribed, whether you've subscribed in order to get the free information or just purely to be a pain in my butt. It doesn't matter, you've helped to clock up the numbers. So at 3,000, that's incredible. Now, today's video is quite a long one. I'm going to do my best to cut it down as much as possible. I've just finished a night shift. I am really tired, and you may well find that today's video doesn't flow too well, but it's one I need to get out the way. We're now starting the reassembly on this black car. Now, as you look at it right now, you're going to say, well, it's nowhere near finished. You've got paint work to do. Some things aren't cleaned properly. Don't worry about it. As we go along, every single bit will be covered. Now, today we're going to start on the reassembly of the interior. Now, this is going to be done in multiple sections. The reason is you can't just put it all together in one go. It has to be done because some parts overlap onto other parts and so on. So we're starting with the first part, which is the upper section of the interior. In another video, we'll cover the lower section, then the middle, and then the dashboard and center console. The reason we can't do it all in one is this is hours and hours of work. For you, you just see the cut down video, which is maybe half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But the preparation time for this video runs into days, because before we put the parts back on, they've all got to be cleaned. We've got to make sure the screws have been replated and so on and so forth. And also, as we go along this line of parts that we're going to be fitting today, I'm also going to show you certain cleaning techniques or certain repair techniques that you may well need to know. Now, the upper section of the interior comprises of 10 parts. And if you took off your sail panel and quarter panel, there's an additional 4 parts there which have to go on before you do the upper interior. Now, we're not actually covering the outside of the car today. So even though these sail panels haven't been cleaned and restored properly, don't worry about it. They will be covered in a future video. I'm only putting them on today just so we can get this upper section of the interior fitted. So a total of 14 parts going on today. That equates to 101 screws, washers, nuts, connectors. Just the sheer number of parts required to fit these simple 14 pieces is incredible. So while I'm in the flow of things, we're going to start with, I think, the headliner. Now, here is another headliner. As you can see, the previous owner of this car must have been a miner or something. I've got no idea how this interior got to this state, but you can see with a little bit of work, you can bring it back to new. Now, as far as cleaning these goes, you've got to be very careful what you use to clean them. Lots of water is a really big mistake, because what happens is the water soaks through the liner. It goes to the wood pulp backing. The wood pulp backing gives off I call it a dye for lack of words. There is something that leaches out of it, and it will cause you horrible staining of the liner. So whatever you do, do not get it too wet. The second thing I would say is Clean the whole thing in one go. Do not do one section and allow it to dry, because you're going to get watermarks all over the place which you'll have trouble getting out. Now this headliner wasn't too far from what that one looks like, and as you can see, I did a little bit of cleaning to show that it will come up well. I've done this complete headliner to put it in today. And all I used was a regular carpet and fabric mousse. And what you do is get yourself a spray bottle with a fine mist spray, fill it with distilled water. You spray the headliner very lightly with the misting of water. Then you put on the mousse, cover the whole thing at once. If there's two of you, that is much better, because you can get the whole lot done very quickly. Then you get a normal regular nail brush, a nylon nail brush, and you just scrub the entire liner. Once it's all been scrubbed, you then get a wet and dry vacuum cleaner, or actually I just used the regular Dyson type vacuum cleaner that doesn't have a bag in it, and then I just vacuumed it all after. That sucks all the moisture out, because you've only used a very small amount of water. It shouldn't affect your vacuum cleaner too much, but I'll leave that to you, which type of vacuum cleaner you use. And that's all I've done, just literally moussed it, scrubbed it, vacuumed it, and it's come up like this. Same goes for your sun visors, same system on those for cleaning those. Then we move on to some of the interior parts. Now, what I fail to understand is why Mitsubishi, who's been in this business for I believe 100 odd years, gives us in the manual the correct cleaning methods. Those cleaning methods are a simple mild soap. No chemicals in it, just simple mild soap and a cloth or a gentle scrubbing brush. And that brings all of these products up beautifully. It costs you next to nothing. What's a bar of soap these days? 50 pence, $1. It's nothing really. And you can get remarkable results just by giving these a quick soap down, save a fortune on all those chemical products that you can buy, which then may or may not do damage to some of the plastics. So that's all I used to restore some of these, bring them all back to near new condition. Then, having said don't use all the expensive cleaning products, I then use the Meguiar's number 40, which is a rubber and vinyl protector, gives a UV coating, gives a beautiful new smell to the car, and then I'll do that just before I put them in the car. So that's that. Oh, one other thing I need to bring up, these little A-post pillar pieces. Of course, many of you are going to have this problem. The plastic has now become very brittle, and you tend to find that these little lugs snap off. Now, that's not the end of this. Usually, if you just lose one or two, you can stick them. You can stick it back in with one or two missing, and you won't notice any difference. If you've broken a few more, especially up this top piece here, these can be repaired quite easily now. Now, it's made from two different types of plastic, I've found. Depending on which year your car is, it could be the white or the black plastic. In some cases, both are the same type of plastic, which is ABS. With ABS, you can either do plastic welding to put them back in, and this is by far the strongest method. But also, there are glues around now that you can use. Be careful, some of them say they're plastic glue, but if you read the very fine print, you'll find that they won't necessarily work on all types of plastic. Now, if that's the case, there is a new glue out now that's well worth noting. And somewhere around here, I've got a tube of it. Okay, this is a multi-part glue similar to the epoxy glues, but this one works differently. This one actually heats the plastic and causes the surface of the plastic to melt, so the two pieces fuse together properly rather than create a glue barrier, which is a weak barrier and often doesn't stick to the plastic properly. So look out for this type of glue. You can ask some specialist in a hardware store or whatever for a correct glue that actually fuses the plastic together rather than glues it together. So that's how I now repair these, and it is super strong, almost impossible to break, certainly as strong as the original plastic. So use that. We're also today, of course, the nuts and bolts. In a previous video about restoring parts, I told you that all these yellow nuts and bolts, this is yellow passivate coating. You can send them away. Watch my other video on restoring nuts and bolts. You can send them away, have them all done really cheaply. And finally, all the rubber washers. These are absolutely essential to stopping moisture getting into the car. I would recommend, unless your rubber washers are really supple, just replace them. Now, you don't have to spend a fortune on replacing them. On some cars, you're going to have a foam. I believe it's EPDM they call it. And you can buy a whole sheet of this for just a couple of dollars. And others are a neoprene rubber washer. Again, you can buy a square meter of this, 3 foot square, whatever it is, again for a couple of dollars. And that's going to allow you to do gaskets all over the car, a worthwhile investment. Now, of course, how do you cut washers to the correct size and get the holes in the middle? Well, that's also not too difficult. Right, a couple of simple tools. You can buy this, it's a simple hole punch. You get a whole set of these for next to nothing. And then you need to know how to get the center of the hole and so forth. Now, again, depending on which model of car you've got and how old it is, the washers would have either been around 10 millimeters. If you're American, that would be around the size of a dime. And of course, some of them are a larger washer like these, which is around 20 millimeters, and that's the equivalent of a nickel. So if you grab yourself a nickel, you've got an idea of the price, the size. Now, the next thing you need to do is take your nickel down to the hardware store and get a washer. Get a washer that's about the same size as a nickel, and then what that allows you to do is get your rubber. You're going to drop your washer onto the rubber. First thing you're going to do is punch a hole through the middle, and then you're going to get a Stanley knife or some other craft knife and just cut around the washer, and then that gives you your perfect rubber washer or gasket to put the parts together. So it's a good money saving idea, makes the job a lot easier, and it's something you can do at home rather than giving Mitsubishi your money for the rubber washers. So I think that's about all we need to talk about here. We'd better get on with doing the job. Now, for the first part of this video, it isn't actually part of the video because this video is about the interior, putting that back together. However, some of you removed your interior in order to get off the sail panel and quarter panels. So we're just going to put those on very quickly to show how to put them back on. Now, as I said, these haven't been restored yet, but it doesn't matter, that'll be covered in a later video. So we'll start off with the sail panel, flip it over. You're going to have to put your 3 washers on the 3 bolts. Oop. Make sure they fit nice and tight around the thread. And then we need the 3 nuts. Now, we're only going to need 2 tools today as far as I can recall. One is an 8mm wrench, ideally with a long body, because as you can see some of these bolts are quite long, and you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver, and hopefully those are the only tools you're going to need today. We'll go over to the car. I've picked up the wrong one. And we fit the sail panel into the 3 locating holes. On the other side, did I drop a nut then? No, it's over there, never mind. Onto the other side where the 3 bolts went through, you put on your 3 nuts. Now the problem is you're not going to be able to get your fingers in there. So what you need to do is put the nut in the end, then try and keep it at an angle as you push it through the hole locate the bolt and screw it in. Now don't do it up tight initially, just get it in by hand. That's one. That's two, and then I'll lift the third one over here.
We'll show the locating holes when you do the ones on the other side.
Yep. Now remember, there was a rubber gasket in there between the two parts. If you do this up really tight, all it's going to do is split that rubber gasket. So make sure you don't do that. This is just a very gentle nip, and this is why it's always better to use a small wrench for this, so you're not of the frame of mind that you need to really put some work into it. It is literally just a gentle nip. That's the first part. Next one. Yeah, again,
That's the right one.
we've got the 3 gaskets.
I saw gaskets on it already.
Oh, there is. No, there's not.
No?
No,
Alright,
there's
come on.
no. Put 3 gaskets on. We didn't show that one, did we?
No,
This
you've
has
got
already
all of
got the
them.
bolts on. So, okay. We've got these 3 special bolts here. They slot into there. Now these are easily broken, so I strongly recommend taking the strain from behind. You notice it'll only go in one way. Just work that in until it locks into place. And this one. You don't put one in the middle. It's now the top one. Like so.
One other thing to note, you've also got the rubber.
The
on
rubber
top and
strips,
bottom
yeah, make sure those are still on
to
there.
prevent it rubbing on the body of the car.
Okay, now we're going to start off with this screw. Now on some cars this is the olive drab colour. Mitsubishi are cutting costs now. They've stopped coating these in anything but zinc on many of their bolts. So again, 3 locating points. Just drop that in there. Like so. Now this screw here goes up the top, and you're going to put this one in first just to stop this falling. You're not going to do it up tight, just enough to hold it in place. Then we need our 3 nuts. And as with the sail panel, you're going to have to use your wrench to go through the holes. Put the first nut on. Two of them you can do without the wrench actually to get them on. It's just one up there through the hole. And then the top one. Now you're just going to do these up finger tight, just very gently first of all, and then we're going to screw this nut, this screw down to hold that in place. So what we've done is sort of pulled it in and pulled it down as we go to get it into the right location. And again, you just gently nip these up. Do not do them up tight. Okay, now we'll do the same on the other side. So now we have the view from inside the car. Start off with our sail panel, like so. We have 2 bolts here, I believe, 1 and 2, and then 1 up the top here. So I'll start with the top one. Excuse my head, but I want to see where those bolts are. Don't like dropping these nuts because often they drop down into the bodywork of the car and they're hard to find. Now luckily these panels pretty much locate themselves, so you don't have to line anything up as such. It all pretty much drops into place. Just quickly nip those up. Now we have the sail panel. Not the sail panel, the
Side panel.
quarter panel, corner panel, whatever you want to call it. Line up all the holes. Simple screw that goes in the top. Don't fully tighten it down just yet. Three nuts. Bottom 2 are nice and easy to do by hand. You can probably see on that thread where water has leaked through in the past. This is why you have to put on new gaskets, rubber seals to stop the moisture getting in. Top one, we'll need to use this up in there. You feel as the rubber crushes down. You don't need to do it up too tight. Okay, now we move on to the next bit, which is the headliner itself. For that, it's much easier with 2 people, but of course you don't always have 2 people to hand. So I use my trusty ratchet strap, and I'm going to use that to hold it in place while we put all the parts in to hold it all in place. Just give me a second, let's get those parts. Now for the next part of the video, I've chosen to put on some gloves because this lovely clean headliner doesn't need my mucky prints all over it. All we're going to need to hold it in place is 3 simple plastic push-on, I don't know what you call them actually, just push-on caps, yeah, whatever. We'll need those. And I've also put the ratchet strap in place to assist me. Now if your front seats are still in place, that's a good help for you. But I've only got 1 seat in place, so I'm going to use the ratchet strap. Also, you need to remember that there should be 4 wires hanging down. 2 for your sun visors, 1 for your dome light, and 1 for your interior temperature sensor. Make sure those are all located ready to install. Grab your roof liner, flip it upside down, and then slide it in. I can now put the ratchet strap around the back of it. going to slide it back and then forward. Now this allows me to climb in, and I'm going to do up the ratchet strap to hold up the back for me. It's just an additional pair of hands. Now you don't need to do this up tight, it is purely just to hold it in place, stop it falling down. Now before we pop it up, we've got to make sure all these wires poke through. So the centre one will go through the dome light hole. These aren't quite high enough yet, I don't think. Make sure you've got your roof temperature sensor one in. Through this hole here. Yep, those aren't quite in place yet. If you've got a second pair of hands, it does make life a lot easier. Not even sure if that's the right hole, we'll need to check that. So with that in place there, you'll see a locating hole. Just pop that in there, like so. Now the back one, oh, I've covered up the locating hole with a piece of tape. The tape was to hold the wires in place. Right, let's try again. That's that one. Now my cables come out, so I'll pop that back in the hole. Like so.
Oh no, you might just miss the tape.
Okay, that's all held up. Right, now I think we'll put the temperature sensor in. So if you give me a second, I'll grab that. We can actually take this ratchet strap off now because it's all held up by the plastic clips. And that gives us a bit more freedom. Internal temperature sensor. Simple plug-in, it will only go one way round. If you're having difficulty with it, you've probably got it round the wrong way. Thank you. Feed all your cables back in out the way, and this simply pops into place, like so. Now we've got the dome light. 2 screws. Here is your earth wire, you have to make sure that's in place. Simple plug, only goes one way round. Plug that in, make sure all your wires are tucked out the way. Now I've got to make sure I've got this round the right way, that's it. That will go up like so. Phillips screwdriver. One. 2. Make sure your earth one is done up reasonably tight so you get a good earth. Then the cover simply pops on. Like so. Next part.
Just out on your phone.
Oops. Now we have these clips. These hold your sun visor in place. Simple screw, olive drab, very slightly domed head. One for the other side, if I can remember where I put it. Okay, I see the screws. It's gone under the seat.
out the guide pin that it has.
Could do. We've got this pin here, so there'll be 2 holes there, one for the guide, one for the screw. Just make sure you get them round the right way. Now we're on to the sun visor. You're going to need 2 of the same screws for this. Connect up your wiring first. Poke that up out the way. Now this bit can normally be a bit tricky, you've got very limited space. It will go up there, you just got to work it into the cavity. Make sure you don't trap any wires as you go. Now we put these up first because that will now hold the sun visor for you. Gives you a free hand to grab your screws. Don't do them up, as always, I keep saying, never do them up tight until they're all in, and then you can pull it all into place. 1 and 2. That's that one done. Oh, I've got some muck on there. I'll have to re-clean that a little bit after. On to the other side.
Should we do your mirror there?
Yeah, thanks for that. The mirror wasn't the problem, it was the head. Just make sure none of the wires are trapped, and they are. I just noticed these wires have been put back wrong by someone. That should not be there. Okay, you're going to have to give me a minute. The wire should have run through a cavity in the roof, but for some reason it's not running through the cavity, it's running just behind the headliner, and that means when we screw this up it's actually going to trap the wire. So I'm going to cut the video a second just while I route that where it should be. So I finally managed to get this cable back through the correct channel. I can see now why whoever took it apart last time never bothered to put it back right. It was an absolute nightmare to run back through the original channel, but we got it there in the end. And what I have to emphasize, when you're doing any work on your car, it is absolutely critical that cables are run correctly and there is no risk of a short circuit. The last thing you want is your lovely restored car burning to ashes because you didn't put a cable in the right place, a screw has clipped it and caused a short circuit. So that's now back in the right place. Clip this on here, plug in our cable, poke that back up in there. As some of these things can be a little bit awkward and finicky, but it is well worth doing the job properly. And this is going to be another pain one. There we go, got it. Can't seem to find the locating hole now. There it is. And the next one. Now these do tend to work loose from time to time, so make sure you do them up nice and tight. There we go. Again, we've got muck on there, clean that after. Let's have a look at the next part. Next part of the process, A-pillar covers. They're fitted using these simple clips. Now some people like to put the clips into the bodywork first and then push the plastic into the clips. I prefer to put the clips onto the plastic and then insert it all in one go. The reason I do this is because these are very narrow blades here that have to fit into these very narrow guides. And when you're trying to fit it blindly into little tiny holes, it's very difficult and easy to force a thing and break something. By doing it this way, we've got a much bigger hole to line up with. And that didn't go on straight. There. Make sure they're pushed all the way on. And now what we can do is guide this in, look for your holes that you're going to be inserting into. This dashboard isn't fitted properly, it's not supposed to be, because that's another video for another day. But what is giving us a problem is where it's been sitting, it's not lining up correctly.
Looks like it's probably a little too far your way, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just pull it forward just enough to get that off there. Okay, that's a problem with videos when you don't plan them in advance. Where are we got to go to? About there. Despite all the preparation work, there's very little in the way of planning. There we go. Now you can do this with a dashboard in or out, makes no difference. So line up all your holes first. You'll feel when it drops into the holes, they go in nice and snug. When you're sure that they're all lined up, you can start popping them into place. There we go. That's the pillars done. Starting to come together now. Now we're in the back of the car for the next piece. Now we move on to the rear trim. This one goes along the edge of the roof liner now. Okay, and it has to go one specific way round. On one side you'll see it's tapered, on the other side you'll see it's rounded. The rounded side goes towards the outside of the car. And you're going to need 5 of these clips. They don't go anywhere else in the car, so if you've got 5 of these laying around, now you know where they go. And they're going to go into little tiny slots along the top here. Now to make life easier, we'll take off the rubber trim. It's this slot here with a little tiny hole. Oh, sorry, no, there. Did you get them?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to take off the door seal from around the back. Watch your eyes, because the muck will fall into your eyes. There's always muck trapped in these things. Just peel that back a little bit. And then you get your little plastic clip. You'll see that one side is a bit wavy. That's the side you're going to slot into the hole. And it clips into place. Move on to the next one. Oh, should I put it up the right way? Tends to help. There we go. It's 2. Three. 4 and 5, like so. Now we can take our trim. Now this is a bit of a playing game. Get it as central as you can, using the clips as a guide for the center. And then it fits into a little groove, and it's sort of a rocking action to clip it on. That's it. That's in place now. So now we move on to the next bit, which happens to be the plastic quarter panel that goes in here. One on each side. Let's take a look at that. So rear quarter panels next, and this is the final piece. For this, we're going to start off. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, more live TV, you gotta love it. And I lost it. Where on earth? Ah, here we go. Right, this little plastic clip. This goes to the back of the car. Right. In here. Pop that in like so. Then on your rear quarter, you're going to need 9 of these. As with the A-post cover, you just clip these into place. Got to make sure they seat down properly, or else it won't go in properly. All the way down. For some reason you start putting them on all nice and lined up, and then they move as you push them down that last little piece. Okay, is that all of them?
Yep.
Yes, although we just noticed there's an old one left in here, which I need to get out. There we go. Right, check there's no more left in there. Now you can see the locating slots all the way down and along there. So that's what we've got to line up with. Now I'm going to jump in. Hopefully I'm not going to interfere with the camera. Now you'll notice on excuse me, on the back here we've got this locating point. This is going to go over that clip that we fitted over there, and we're also going to remove this rubber a bit further down, and we're going to try to get that to slot over there.
Also make allowance for the ram for the tailgate.
Yep. Okay, you know it's in place when it doesn't come off anymore. We've got to get that behind our cables over here. And now we're going to start the slow process of trying to line up all these little clips that you've just fitted. Now you'll know when it's lined up because you'll feel it sort of maneuver itself almost into the right position. And don't try and rush it, it's a slow process. Making sure they're all lined up properly and dropping into place. Okay, we've got one here that's not being friendly. Ah, there we go. That all feels good. Okay, now we have this. You'll see there's one little tag that sticks out, and there's a little hole there for that tag. You want this screw in there and in there. Phillips screwdriver, line up the little notch and screw that down. Now we need this rubber cover. Oops. Want it this way up. This slots over the top. You pull it down tight, stretch it over the bottom pegs and then that's in place. Now we're up the top here. Now this one's often a problem because you're actually screwing into a very thin piece of plastic behind, which is part of this, and over the years the hole is worn, and quite often the screw doesn't want to stay in place. Hopefully it will this time, because it can be a real pain if it won't. Just enough. Then we've got a little plastic cover to go over the top. Again, this is a little bit of a funny one. It's sort of an afterthought. Never seems to go on right or look right, but this one's not too bad. Then we've got these 3 pegs. Okay, push the center outwards to about that point. You'll feel it clip into place. Put it into the hole. And then once it's in, push the center pin in. Next one, push it outwards first, into the hole. Bit of a tight spot, there we go, center pin in. Final one, same process. Okay, I'm struggling to line this one up. Okay, I can see where the hole is now. Right, let's try and move that over a little bit. Push the centre one in. Okay, is that all of them? I believe so. Now we'll stick the rubber back on. Now I've already put the cover on the other side just to save some time. So now we stretch it up here. This lip here goes over the outside of the plastic we've just put on. Nice. And I do believe that was the last piece. Not sure how long that's taken. It seems like hours and hours and hours, but at the end of the day, this part of the job is now done. In the next video, we'll move on to the bottom section. So for now, thanks for watching, and again, thanks to the patrons. If you've liked this channel, don't forget to subscribe, and maybe give us a thumbs up to say that you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate it, along with any comments. So for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.